Hi, everyone. We're live now. It's 7 p.m. with immigration consequences of COVID-19. I had gotten a lot of inquiries about what are the effects of the current travel ban restrictions, USCIS closures, detention facilities, and there were a lot of questions around immigration. So before we get started, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Afia Yunus. I am the founder of Yunus Law. We are an immigration law practice in southern New Jersey and in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You can visit my website, www.yunuslaw.com. You can also follow my Facebook page at Yunus Law PC. And we'll go ahead and get started. So, as many of you know, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused a lot of ripple effects, specifically in the area of immigration. I'm going to methodically kind of go through each agency or different area of immigration law and let you know what the impacts are on that specific area. So, first of all, we do have that the land borders, that's the US border with Canada and Mexico, have been officially closed. Okay. So, what that means is any non essential travel is going to be specifically banned. Now, a lot of questions have come up around what exactly is essential. And the US government has defined it as anything not related to tourism or recreational purposes. So those are the restrictions on the northern and southern border of the United States. I also want to make clear that this excludes US citizens and lawful permanent residents from actually coming back to the US. So if you travel, let's say, to Canada a month ago prior to the ban, then you will be able to come back into the United States. This will not prevent the entry to the United States for United States citizens and lawful permanent residents. Okay, so the next item that I felt was important is air travel restrictions. A lot of questions around what exactly are the restrictions for travel. Now, I want to make clear that the restrictions for United States citizens, lawful permanent residents, and immediate relatives of US citizens and lawful permanent residents are going to be different. So the president, about a couple of weeks ago, restricted the entry. So he created a ban for foreign nationals. So these are people who are not US citizens. He's excluding green card holders. So foreign nationals from entering the United States if they had visited one of about 26 countries on the banned list within the 14 days prior to coming to the US. So to break this down, if you are a United States citizen or a green card holder or an immediate relative of either a US citizen or a green card holder, then you are not subject to the ban. What will happen to you is when you come back to the United States, you have to make sure, number one, that you enter into a designated airport. Now, if you visit the Department of State website or you can email me offline, there are, I believe, 13 designated airports that you must fly into. You will be subject to enhanced security screening. That means they're going to check your temperature. They're going to ask you questions about where you were. And again, this is only if you visited one of the Schengen area countries, Iran or China, in the 14 days prior to entering the United States. After you go through security screening, then you will be subjected to a mandatory 14-day quarantine. That's self-imposed. The United States government will not force that on you. They won't detain you as a U.S. citizen or green card holder. You will be self-imposing a quarantine for 14 days. So again, let me go over the travel ban restrictions. If you are a U.S. citizen or green card holder, or the spouse child, or parent of a U.S. citizen or green card holder, then you can enter the United States even if you visited one of the impacted countries. However, you will have to land in one of the 13 designated airports, and you will be subjected to enhanced security screening, and you will be subjected to self-imposed 14-day quarantine. If you are not falling into one of these categories, so for example, if you are a foreign national who does not have a green card and you do not have an immediate relative who's a green card holder, for example, an H-1B holder who happened to go back to his home country and now of China, and now he wants to come back to the United States. Unfortunately, you will be subject to the travel ban. The travel ban applies to all foreign nationals who are not green card holders who have visited the impacted countries in the Shenzhen area, Iran, or China within 14 days prior to coming to the United States. They will not be allowed to enter the United States. So what are the Shenzhen area countries? I'll just run through them really quickly. You can also Google them. They are Belgium, Austria, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Liechtenstein, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and the UK, and Iran and China. So if you, again, if you are a foreign national, that is, you do not have a green card and you are not a U.S. citizen, and you visited these countries within 14 days of trying to come to the United States, you will be banned from entry. The designated airports, there is, somebody posted the list. There's about 14 of them. And so you just want to make sure that when you schedule your travel back into the United States that you land into one of these designated airports. They're basically the major U.S. airports. There is a national interest exception to the ban, but I want to make very clear that the Department of State said that it's extremely rare that they would allow for this exception. So I wouldn't necessarily count on it. Just wanted to make you guys aware of that. I can reiterate this again at the end. I know a lot of people had questions about travel. So we'll move on from here. I have a live question about B1, B2s. So B1, B2s are also considered foreign nationals. Unless you are the immediate relative of a U.S. citizen or green card holder, you will be banned if you've been to one of these countries within 14 days prior to trying to come to the U.S., okay? So keep in mind, the travel ban is not a blanket ban. It only affects you if you have been to one of these countries within 14 days of trying to come to the U.S. So for example, if you have a B1, B2 from Pakistan and you have not been to any of these impacted countries, you should be able to come to the United States on your visa. The issue you will face is actually buying a ticket. So plane tickets from Pakistan to the United States, let's say, for example, if they're no longer flying, then you're going to have logistical restrictions. But the travel ban would not apply because you hadn't been to any of the impacted countries. I want to move on from travel restrictions to USCIS. So I got a lot of questions about processing applications and interview delays. So this portion of the live will be about USCIS. That's the government agency that processes applications for immigrant benefits. So the USCIS offices are closed until May 4th, as of today, April 17th, the date of this live. That could be extended even further. And up until May 4th, they have canceled all interviews, all oath-taking ceremonies, all biometrics appointments. So this is what's going to happen if you have one of these scheduled before May 4th. you will get a notice from USCIS saying that they are rescheduling your appointment. It will not have the date of your reschedule. Now, I have a ton of clients who got a reschedule notice. None of them have the date for which they're getting rescheduled. But don't worry, USCIS has assured that they will send another notice in the future with the actual date of your new appointment. This includes naturalization interviews, oath ceremonies, green card application interviews, and all fingerprint appointments for any application. So if you have one of these scheduled up until May 4th, it will be rescheduled and you will receive a second notice letting you know when that date will be. I want to keep in mind, though, that the USCIS InfoPass appointments will not be automatically rescheduled. So if you have an InfoPass appointment at a USCIS field office, that will be canceled automatically, and you will have to reschedule it on your own. If you have a question about a specific USCIS field office, you can email me directly and I can let you know what's going on at that specific office. Now, I got a lot of questions about what to do. My I-94 is about to expire and I cannot travel. Right now, there are a lot of logistical travel restrictions. For example, you can't find a flight, you're exhibiting symptoms, you've actually tested positive for COVID-19, and you're not able to travel in time for the expiration of your I-94. What USCIS has said is they advise you to file an extension of stay prior to the expiration of your I-94. So before your stay expires, go ahead and prepare an application to extend your stay, and you can state in your extension of status application the reason why you need to extend your status. Keep in mind, generally, when you file an extension of stay application, you will not generally accrue unlawful presence, and your work permit will be extended for up to 240 days while your extension of stay application is pending. And also, they've stated that if you file an extension of stay request prior to the expiration, then previously taken fingerprints will be used. They understand that you cannot come into the office to get fingerprinted again, so they'll go ahead and accept previously taken fingerprints. If you are in the United States on the visa waiver program and you're stuck, we understand you cannot file an extension of status on the visa waiver program. There's a specific remedy for you. It's called requesting satisfactory departure. I won't go into detail about it. Please contact an immigration attorney. If you're in the U.S. on the visa waiver program, you may have to go visit your local USCIS or CBP office and request satisfactory departure. They basically extend your stay for 30 more days, and they can extend it again up to 60 days if you're not able to leave the United States. Another policy change by USCIS due to COVID-19 is that if you have received any request for evidence, notice of intent to deny, notice of intent to revoke, if you've received any notice from USCIS requesting additional information, that they're extending the deadline on those responses for up to 60 calendar days. For example, if you filed an I-130 petition for your wife and you received an RFE, a request for evidence, for example, wedding photos, and the due date is April 17th to respond, you will get an additional 60 calendar days to respond to that RFE. Also, I just wanted to say two last things about USCIS, really important here. As some of you may know, I had another video on the public charge expansion by President Trump. Treatment, preventative care and testing for COVID-19 will not be considered in the public charge determination. So what that means is whenever you go to apply for your green card, these preventative measures and treatment for COVID-19 will not be considered as receiving a public benefit. And that's really, really important. I do want to note, though, that the Department of State has not released guidance on this. So there's a difference between whether you're applying for your green card from within the U.S. and whether you're applying for an immigrant visa from abroad. If applying for a green card from within the U.S., then that COVID-19 treatment and preventative care, even if it's covered by the government, will not be considered a public benefit for public charge purposes. And I see your live questions. I will answer them at the end just to keep it smooth. Another question I got was about unemployment benefits. Those are also not considered public benefits for purposes of the public charge rule. Those are actually considered earned benefits. You only get unemployment compensation if you actually worked and earned those benefits. So you can go ahead and get your unemployment benefits if you're eligible. I'm now going to make a shift to visa processing. So we covered the northern and southern border closing. We covered travel restrictions by air. We covered USCIS. And now we're going to cover visa processing. So as of right now, most embassies, if not all of them, have closed or either significantly reduced all visa services. Services for U.S. citizens are still happening, but all other routine immigrant and non-immigrant visa interviews are being canceled and they are not being scheduled. Also, visa waiver program services are still available. Those, if you're familiar, are done online through the ESTA program. So I'm assuming that the embassies can still process those. Again, non-immigrant visa interviews are all going to be rescheduled, and no more are going to be scheduled for the foreseeable future. If you've already paid your immigrant visa fee and you have not been scheduled for your interview yet, what's going to happen? The embassy said that they will honor your visa fee payment for up to 1 year. Also, embassies are allowing for emergency appointments only. Again, this goes back to getting a travel ban exception. It's going to be extremely rare. So I would suggest contacting an immigration lawyer before even contacting the embassy to get an emergency appointment. I also have access to embassy-specific information. So if there's a particular embassy that you have a question about, you can email me or contact me on my Facebook page, and I can let you know what's happening with that specific embassy. Also, with visa processing, the National Visa Center, for those of you who are familiar, is the clearinghouse for visas documentation. They have significantly reduced staffing, so they will not be accepting any inquiries on the NVC Public Inquiry Forum except for urgent requests. So if you submitted an inquiry on the NVC Public Inquiry Forum on or before March 27th, it's saying they will not respond to it unless it's urgent. So make sure that if you do have an urgent request, you submit that. And if you don't, know that you won't get a response. Also, if you call the NVC, expect significant delays. They have significantly reduced their staffing. One question I had gotten related to visa processing, if you are abroad and you attended your immigrant visa interview, you got your immigrant visa stamp, but now you're stuck. So the immigrant visa is issued for 6 months, and let's say it's about to expire and you can't come to the United States. The consulates have said, and the embassies have said, that you can contact them directly and they can reprint a new immigrant visa so long as your medical certificate and your police certificates are still valid. They'll go ahead and issue a new visa and enter it into your passport. once the travel restrictions are lifted. So I've gotten that inquiry a lot from people abroad who are worried about their immigrant visa expiring. Rest assured, the embassies have said that they will reissue a new visa. The next topic I'm going to be covering is stimulus money. So I've gotten a lot of questions about where's my money? So if you are a non-US citizen, okay, then there's two requirements that must be met in order to get a stimulus check. And I know most of the direct deposits have already been deposited, but this is just information. It's important for you to know in case you didn't get it and you were eligible. So if you are not a US citizen, then you, number one, must have a valid Social Security number, and that's key. And secondly, you must meet one of two tests, okay? So not a US citizen, valid Social Security number, and you meet one of two tests. What are the two tests? Either you are a green card holder at any time during the calendar year, or you were present in the United States, so physically present in the United States on at least 31 days of the current year and 183 days during the 3-year period that includes the current year. What all of this means is it's extremely complex. And if you feel that you may be eligible as a non-US citizen and you didn't get your check, or you're unsure, contact an immigration attorney or your tax professional and they can let you know. Key is if you filed your taxes under an ITIN, that's an individual taxpayer identification number, you are not eligible for a stimulus check. Unfortunately, the stimulus bill also denies the check to anyone if they filed a joint return with a spouse or child who filed with an ITIN. So the ITIN is kind of the nail in the coffin. If you filed with one, or if you filed with a spouse or a child who used an ITIN, you are not eligible for the stimulus check. So an example is an H-1B worker who has a valid SSN, but unfortunately whose wife is not eligible for a Social Security number and filed a joint return with an ITIN. So unfortunately, the H-1B holder and the H-4 spouse would not be eligible for the stimulus check. Another final note about the stimulus money, it will not be considered in the public charge determination. Very important for non-immigrant visa holders. When they go to apply for a green card, the public charge determination will come into play. Thankfully, the stimulus check will not be considered. Two final points is immigration court. Just wanted to say really quickly that all non-detained hearings are canceled and they will be rescheduled through May 1st. And I'm assuming that will be extended even more. And some courts are open for filings, but you want to check the immigration court website to make sure. About detention, if you or your loved one is being detained currently, ICE is accepting requests by attorneys and family members to release high-risk detainees. They have released reportedly around 700 detainees due to COVID-19 risk. So it is something that's happening. A lot of my colleagues have been successful in getting their clients released from detention. If they are not a flight risk and if there's a significant public health risk, which we definitely have right now, then we can fight for the release of your detained family members. So if your family member, if your loved one, friend, anyone you know is being detained currently, I would contact an immigration attorney and see if we can get them released. ICE is making these determinations on a case-by-case basis. So it's really important that we prioritize our detained immigrants because right now they're at a very, very heightened risk of exposure to COVID-19. So that's everything I have. I wanted to make it as quick as possible and then jump into questions. So one of the questions is, can you speak on conditional resident visas? The American consulate at Morocco is not interviewing at this time. Is there anything that can be done? Unfortunately, as I stated, non-immigrant visa interviews are currently not being scheduled. So if your loved one, let's say your spouse in this instance, is in the visa process, but they're just about to get scheduled for interview, they will have to wait. They are making national interest exceptions, but as I said, they're extremely rare. The Department of State use those words on their own, so you want to be careful. We just have to buckle down and wait. They're not scheduling immigrant visa, non-immigrant visa interviews right now. Another question I have is, my N400 interview was canceled in December of 2019 due to background checks being incomplete, but has not been rescheduled. What do you think of this? It has been some time. I mean, it's been about 4 months. I would inquire with the particular USCIS field office. You want to contact the field office that was adjudicating your N400 directly. Keep in mind, though, that USCIS has also reduced staffing. So be patient in receiving a response. And also, they will not reschedule that N400 interview right now. They are closed until, I believe it was, May 4th. So they won't reschedule any N400 interview prior to that date. So that's answering USCIS questions. Another question I have is, all the oath-taking ceremonies are canceled. Is there any date available for opening? Again, the oath-taking ceremonies are just like all of the other appointments. They are being rescheduled. Everybody's going to get a reschedule notice. And unfortunately, the reschedule notice does not have a date for your new appointment. You will have to wait for a second notice to tell you what the date is. We just have to wait at this point. USCIS is closed until May 4th. So it's likely that everything will get extremely backlogged. And so continue to contact the field office. My personal practice is every 30 to 60 days to contact the field office. But keep in mind that it's going to be quite some time. Somebody listed the designated airports, so I appreciate that. So make sure, again, that you fly into one of those designated airports if you've been to any of the impacted area. I will go to some of my questions that I received via Facebook and also from my Instagram followers. So one of the questions is, my parents are green card holders. They're unable to come to the USA prior to their 1-year mandatory return due to the current situation. What is your suggestion? And does USCIS allow any flexibility? So this is a really good question. For those of you who are not familiar, if you are a green card holder and you've been outside the United States for more than a year, then you've effectively abandoned your lawful permanent resident status, and the Department of State can implement those proceedings against you to say that you've abandoned your status. So what I've advised clients to do is to contact the embassy using whatever channels that embassy provides. Some of them have email addresses and some of them do not. Let them know that you're a green card holder and that due to the current circumstances, you're not able to travel. Get that documented. Now, there is something called the SB1 visa, and that's basically for situations just like this. It allows for green card holders to apply for this specific type of visa from the embassy in situations where, due to medical reasons or urgent humanitarian reasons or any type of emergency, that they were not able to return to the US within the 1 year. In this circumstance, the likelihood of getting this type of visa is pretty high, considering it's completely out of your parents' control whether they can come to the US. So I'd contact an immigration attorney and definitely follow these steps with following up with the embassy and documenting the fact that you've notified them that your parents have attempted to come back to the US but cannot. Documentation is key in these circumstances. Another question is, are H-1Bs still being issued? As of today, I checked and they are still being issued and they're still in the process. If you were selected in the lottery in the new registration system, then you saw that on your My USCIS account. As of right now, USCIS is still processing the H-1B visas. Another question, I am an H-1B holder applying for a green card. Am I allowed to receive a stimulus check, aka economic impact payment, because I filed taxes in 2018 and 2019? As I stated, an H-1B holder usually has a valid Social Security number as long as you filed your taxes in the previous calendar year and you didn't file with anyone, any relative who has an ITIN, you should be able to get your stimulus check. You want to make sure you meet the physical presence requirement. So contact your accountant or immigration lawyer and we can look at the days that you've been physically present in the United States, and you should be eligible for the stimulus check. Another question is, will I get a stimulus if my husband has an ITIN? As I stated, unfortunately, the bill denies stimulus check to an eligible individual if you filed jointly with a spouse with an ITIN. So if that's what happened, unfortunately, you are not eligible for the stimulus check. Another question, my husband was supposed to receive his green card by mid-April. When should he receive it now? If I had the answer to that question, I would be a billionaire. Unfortunately, green cards are taking forever. I had a client, it took about 13 months from the time we filed until he actually got his green card. So my personal practice is to follow up every, like I said, 30 to 60 days, continue to follow up, check my USCIS, check the case status. But bear in mind, the reduced staffing is going to impact things like this. So it's going to impact, production of green cards. It's going to impact production of work permits. All of this, other stuff that requires employees staffed in USCIS, we're going to see a delay. Another question I have is, when will the US-Canada border reopen and what counts as essential travel right now? So as I said in the opening of the live, non-essential traffic is tourism or traffic for recreational purposes. And the United States and Canada have agreed that work, so for your employment, that's considered essential. And there's mixed reports on some other things, but if there is a supply truck, supply chain, it will not be disturbed. That's another thing that they've said. And if you cross the Canadian-US border in order to go to your essential job, if you're an essential worker, then you can do that. So really, it's just to kind of visit family that's not going to be considered essential. If it's just for recreational purposes, it won't be considered essential. Let me see if I have any more questions on the live. Okay. I think that's the same question I got. For somebody who is supposed to receive their green card in mid of April, interview was held in end of February. When do you think we should receive it? It really depends on the field office. Like I said, continue to follow up with the field office and just expect delays. Okay, so read the public charge rule. Would a 19-year-old who obtains a visa from a naturalized citizen parent be rejected if the new U.S. citizen was collecting food stamps, welfare checks while naturalization application was processing? Okay. I'm not 100% sure I understand the question, but if the U.S. citizen is receiving public benefits, then that will not impact a family member in the house. who's applying for a green card. If the question is that the person is in naturalization, then the public charge rule only applies when you are applying for a green card. It does not apply when it is not a requirement when you're applying for U.S. citizenship. So if your question is that this person's applying for naturalization, the public charge rule doesn't come into play. It only comes into play when the person's applying for a green card. Okay. Okay, so Alexandria, Virginia, go ahead and email me and I'll let you know. Let me go back to my previous questions. Hi, I filed my case for me and my son January 2016. I did not get my appointment until now. Is there any way we can rush it? The problem is my husband is still in my home country and cannot come without official documents. What to do? Okay. So I don't know who's filing for who. But if you do need to, if it was a visa interview abroad or even an interview here, as I stated, those interviews are being rescheduled. The likelihood of getting them rushed is nearly impossible. What I would say is if you have an urgent humanitarian reason, then you can contact an attorney, and there is that one small exception. Otherwise, unfortunately, you will have to wait before either the U.S. embassy that your husband is processing at opens up, or, unfortunately, the COVID-19 situation kind of subsides and we can get more answers. So I think that's it. We're going to sign off. I appreciate each and every one of you. I just wanted to reiterate that if you have any specific questions, feel free to email me directly. It's Afia, AFIA, at UNISLaw.com. And you can ask me any case-specific questions. I know right now it can be extremely uncertain and everything can be riddled with, anxiety and fear. And it's important that you get the information from the right source. There's a lot of misinformation out there, so make sure you contact an immigration attorney and get the information you need. And know that every single day that we're fighting with you, fighting for you, and I hope and pray that all of you are well and safe. Thank you so much.